lot of positions and feelings and resulting from the election, etc. But this is America, and there's nothing wrong with having emotions, feelings, and the like. But in the end, we are Americans, and we move forward. And so I'm delighted that you come here today, and hopefully you'll go away with at least a fuller perspective of what is going on. It's good to see young people here as well. This is part of the American experience. Let me just go to, I think, the major question that'll be in the room, and that's relative to the Affordable Care Act and its repeal and replacement. That's something that during the course of, well, over a year, during the course of the entire last campaign, was talked about, and promises were made, and promises were to be kept if the parties changed in power, and people like myself were given the opportunity to represent districts in the U.S. Congress. Our position was that the Affordable Care Act was melting down. It was not living up to its promises. People were being hurt by it on a regular basis, and we're seeing that, and reports are coming out even as we speak. So when you look at what was promised, let's just jump here. The promises, premiums will decrease by $2,500. Our president said that. What's happened? Average family premiums have soared by $4,300. The cost of health care will go down. Some deductibles have gone up 60%. We've seen also in this state, this year, the average cost of increase for individuals buying health care is almost 17%. And that's continued year to year, increases that have gone on. You can keep your doctor. 70% of plans consist of narrow networks. And I would guess there are multiple people in your sphere of reference who have lost the ability to have their doctor or their network. That's happening all across the United States. It's not something that we can disagree with truth. The fact is, they have lost. Just think about Iowa. Last week it came out that 94 counties in Iowa, out of 99, now have no health care providers that cover in Iowa. 94 counties. The fact of the matter is that Aetna announced yesterday, Aetna is pulling out of Virginia, but more importantly, they're pulling out by 2018 of the entire United States for covering exchanges. That's a fact that can't be refuted. So what does that produce for people who want health care coverage? Middle-class Americans won't see a tax increase. What about the Obamacare penalty tax? For that reason, we've seen multitudes of people decide not to even purchase health care because of the cost, but now they're taking the tax. They saw that as better than having the problems of paying for deductibles, paying for premiums, and just waiting till they got sick and then purchase insurance. So those were the promises that were made. They didn't come through. Those are irrefutable. Those are irrefutable across the United States. The numbers of people that have had a benefit from the Health Care Act are minuscule when compared to the rest of the nation. Now, what we want to do in the repeal and replace is to do a number of things. The American Health Care Act seeks to restore the doctor-patient relationship, where you and I, with our doctors, make the best decisions for our health. That's how it ought to be. Well, I'm glad you have that. But the reason why we're changing is because many people, if not most, don't have that choice. It promotes more choice and competition among insurers. When you have entire major companies like United Healthcare and Aetna pulling out of the markets altogether, you're losing the opportunities for that. Helps Americans access affordable, quality health care. We want that, don't we? All of us want affordable, quality health care. We don't want to pay $10,000 co-pays. Because then if we have that, we paid our insurance premiums, even if they are low, and subsidized. And we come to purchasing the actual health care, and we find out until we get to that $7,000 out-of-pocket expense level, or copay, or $10,000, or beyond, as we're seeing many constituents in this district that give me those letters of Mr. Congressman, why in the world are you allowing this to happen? They don't have health care. And they choose not to take it because they can't afford the first dollar out of pocket. Empowers families by expanding health care savings accounts. That's not the end all, but it gives you the opportunity of having more choices in having your own dollars that you can use to purchase the health care or even buy better health care coverage for yourself out of health savings accounts. And finally, eliminates costly mandates and taxes. The huge cost of tax, really the tax increase that has come as a result of the Affordable Care Act, is an impingement to people making free choices for the best interests of themselves. So those are the issues that we attempt to address in this bill. The first step was taken last week. It moves to the Senate now. We'll see what happens in the Senate. But the issue is, if we don't provide an alternative to the Affordable Care Act, we will not have quality health care in this country that's affordable. And that's a challenge that takes place.
Disagree.
We're delighted to hear the calls for fixing it. That's what we're doing. That's the question. Let me also point out a couple other things. There's been a lot of talk about members of Congress and their staffs ought to be on the same plan, whatever comes out at the end. That is in place. That had to go in a corresponding bill. It couldn't go in the reconciliation bill because it didn't meet the Byrd rule of the Senate. But it passed in unanimous fashion last week. So members of Congress and their staffs, thank God, will be able to, if ultimately we repeal or replace, have an Affordable Care Act that actually is affordable and works for us. Pre-existing conditions. I know we'll have questions on that today, but let me start out right off the top with the language here, right from the bill itself. No limited access to coverage for individuals with pre-existing conditions. Nothing in this act shall be construed as permitting health insurance insurers to limit access to health coverage for individuals with pre-existing conditions.
What happened to high risk?
I want to just make you aware of some of the considerations that we undertake in Washington on this. As we talk about pre-existing conditions, this is not a partisan issue. You may not believe it, but Republicans have pre-existing conditions too. Republican family members and friends have pre-existing conditions. And it's a nonpartisan issue. We want to make sure the language protects Democrats, Republicans, independents, you name it.
What happened to high-risk pools?
In fact, what we see now with the Affordable Care Act, even though language is there for pre-existing condition coverage, if you cannot find that coverage, if you cannot get an insurance policy to cover it, you don't have pre-existing coverage. That's what has happened with the Affordable Care Act and melting down. So now let's move to the questions. I think Mindy has had an opportunity to work on those questions, and Mindy, thank you for moderating this.
You're welcome. Excellent questions. We're going to start with two. These are from Suzanne out of Pleasant Lake and Sheila out of Ann Arbor. And they're both related, so I'm going to read them both and then let you respond. Why were Planned Parenthood and refugees funded in this spending? What is your opinion of FGM being done in Michigan now? And why have you voted against women's health care, which is provided by Planned Parenthood, such as screening mammograms, screening for cervical cancer? And why have you taken out maternity care and other women's health services by removing the essential services provided and mandated by the current legislation?
You must all be in favor of that?
No. We're Democrats and red policy.
First of all, Planned Parenthood was not funded in the spending bill that was passed last week. There was no funding for Planned Parenthood in that. Make that clear. In the spending bill, there were significant dollars put in to make sure that our borders were secure and that appropriate processes were in place to make sure that refugees coming through were vetted appropriately. Now, on the other issue of Planned Parenthood dollars, Cecile Richards, you all know her. Cecile Richards, the president of Planned Parenthood, who was in front of a number of committees in Congress, including the committee in which I sat. Point blank, under questioning, indicated that they don't have mammogram services at Planned Parenthood.
Lies.
I'm trying to answer the question, folks.
They refer
out for mammogram services.
Yes.
Where we put our money in the spending bill, as well as in the repeal and replacement of the Affordable Care Act, is putting the dollars to the federally qualified health care centers like the ones here in Jackson and other parts of the 7th District that provide the full services, most generally on site. All of those dollars that would have gone toward Planned Parenthood still go to women's health care in a more comprehensive fashion with the federally qualified health care centers and other entities that receive those dollars. So I guess that's the answer. My votes have been for full care for women's health and health in general, and doing it in a way that actually gets the dollars to the places that are doing the work and have them on site for women to benefit from.
Okay, so use next.
Oh, FGN, fully opposed to that. I mean, bottom line is the law is already there. The law needs to be carried out. We're seeing what's taking place here in Michigan right now. The law is being used. People are going to court. Probably people will be going to jail for that. It's an atrocious issue. I mean, who in the world would support that?
Okay, these next questions are about Russia. Jackie from Diamonddale, Marlene from Jackson, Rebecca from Parma, Rachel from Dexter, Deb from Lansing, Lucy from Tecumseh, Mary from Tecumseh, Lynn from Saline, Amanda from Chelsea, Mary Ann from Ann Arbor, or Ann, Juanita from Adrian, Sylvia from Jackson, Mary Rose from Jackson, Pat from Grass Lake, Deborah from Chelsea, James from Ann Arbor, Maggie from Dexter, Angie from Gregory, Kathy from Ann Arbor, Carol from Jackson, Joanne from Manchester, and Todd from Dexter all have questions relating to, do you support an independent investigation into Russia and Before you answer, there are 3 related questions that are a little more specific. Do you want those now? Okay. Carolyn from Chelsea says, please give us your reaction to the Comey firing and what you see forthcoming as a result. Kim from Dexter says, will you demand a special prosecutor to investigate? We do not trust either Republicans or Democrats to conduct a fair investigation. And William from Ann Arbor says, has any evidence been presented to you of Russian collusion with the Trump campaign during the election?
The last question first, no. Not at all. In fact, that's one thing that the president applauded Comey on, saying 3 times he's already said that there's no... It's tough to answer a question when I can't hear myself even. But bottom line is, there are 3 investigations going on right now. Significant investigations going on in a bipartisan fashion. Both in the House, the Senate, as well as the Justice Department. Those continue, those haven't changed. A director may be gone, but the processes are still in place. Nothing has stopped the processes from going on. So bottom line is we're going to let those work. Until we see those aren't working, we let the process work. We know that special prosecutors can be brought in if necessary, but that can also be highly political also. So let's let it work. Right now, I think the most important thing is to get a new director in place, and I personally like to see Mike Rogers put in that position. Mike is a guy that served well in the military, served well in the FBI, served well in Congress, who was also chair of the Select Committee on Intelligence, understands the issues, and so I guess my lobbying efforts right now is to see the replacement come with a guy like Mike Rogers. There are others as well, but I think one thing that ought to move forward quickly is getting a director in place.
Okay, so these next questions are about town hall and conversations. Sam from Ann Arbor, Rachel from Dexter, Susan from Dexter, Andrea from Gregory, and Diane from Chelsea. Thanks for holding so many town halls. How many town halls, I'm sorry, this is specifically Sam's. How many town halls have representatives and Senator Stabenow and Senator Peters held compared to you? When will you hold a real town hall where there can be dialogue between the constituents? And there are multiple questions. There are multiple questions about having dialogue versus written questions, and I thank you for having coffee.
Hey, can we agree on that? That's wonderful. You know, bottom line is, we do town halls because I think it's important to do them, that you have the opportunity to have feedback. You do it in a way that works best. We would love to have individual conversations, and we have that on a regular basis. Ranked by Legistorm, an entity that isn't necessarily an ally of mine. I ranked 10th out of the entire 535 members of Congress, House and Senate, this term and last term. 10th out of 535 for the number of live town halls that we have. That's their record. We've continued that. The first 107 days or so of this term has been far different than the prior terms, with the lack of the ability to be back on an extended basis in the district, but we've still done that. We've even tried on 3 occasions something we never did before, and that was video conference from my office in Washington to my office in Jackson, filling up our conference room with all that it's legally allowed to have a town hall as of such. And 10 people. In one case, well, there are only room for 10 in that room. But in one of those cases, after casting out amongst all the groups, only 3 were willing to show up at that meeting. So we do our best. And we will have, if we have more time. That's why the longer we take on shouting, the less opportunity we have to get through these. And we get through these, we go to an open mic. But you can see it be difficult to carry on a direct conversation with all of the shouting that takes place from that point. So that's how it would go, even as I speak right now. So that's why these work. And they're your questions. And we look forward to doing that. We do teletown halls. Last week we did 2 teletown halls across the entire district. And so the opportunity is on those teletown halls for you to ask questions and to have comments back. So if you ask me what our 2 senators have done, I don't know. I don't keep track of their town halls. But I do know what I do. And that's why we're having meetings like this. Is that the question? That's the question?
I wasn't listening. Okay, so these next 2 questions I'm going to put together. Billy from Eaton Rapids asks, how is Congress going to address highway, water, electrical grid, internet infrastructure? And Linda from Onstead says, MIT Technology Review estimates a border wall with Mexico will cost $40 to $45 billion. factoring in labor, materials, and challenges of the terrain. That money will be better spent elsewhere, particularly since a border wall will have nearly no impact on illegal immigration. How will you vote with regard to funding a border wall? Infrastructure, and specifically the border wall with Mexico.
Bottom line is, there will never be a total border wall. I think I can safely say that, knowing my colleagues in Congress and myself included. You don't need a wall the entire length of the southern border or the northern border, which is more porous. But you do need what is necessary to secure that border. In certain places, that'd be a fence. In certain places, that would be a wall. In certain places, that would be drones and electronic surveillance. In certain places, that'd just be boots on the ground. And so that was one of the reasons in our spending bill we put significant dollars toward boots on the ground to make sure that we have an adequate complement of Customs and Borders agents that are capable of doing their job. That's why we want to, in the future, when we have the opportunity to get through the appropriations process, to make sure that regulations are changed so that we can move those boots actually to the border, as opposed to in certain cases having to be 50 miles back from the border because we can't put our agents on Bureau of Land Management land or national parks. That's absurd to think that we can't secure our border in national lands and national parks. So those things have to change. So I would say, I think for a fact, knowing my colleagues, knowing what it will take to get a so-called actual wall, knowing that there are certain places where you got 30 to 100-foot cliffs, you don't need a wall, that we will do what's necessary to make sure our borders are secured. And then secondly, to make sure that our immigration laws, number one, are followed. And number two, where we need to reform and make it more efficient in getting people who genuinely want to experience the American dream, to live the American way, to come over here as my father and grandparents came, and experience America because they want to be American. To make sure those gates swing wide and free for those kind of people. And we don't hold back the opportunity for people to experience what America is.
What about the environmental impact?
Do I see green signs? Give me a green sign.
What about the environmental impact of the wall?
This next question is from Joel of Jackson. As an aspiring small business owner hoping to open a successful tech startup, I would like you to explain how net neutrality benefits small businesses and why you have voted against it and opposed it.
What we want is true net neutrality. We want unnecessary bureaucracy and administration out of the way. I mean, just think about where we've come with the internet in just a short period of time.
Go back to the question.
Think of the impact that we've had, freedom of opportunity, all sorts of choice that you have. Think about the fact that what we have in technology right now with the iPhone and the ability for me to go to the internet, to talk to Siri, to get answers, and that's not come as a result of government getting down and controlling. It's come as a result of allowing competition to take place. It's come as an opportunity of having Microsoft and Apple and others fighting for the space. It's come with the opportunity for Comcast and AT&T and others to have an opportunity. So bottom line is, if you ask me about net neutrality as pushed forward initially by Obama and ultimately turned back by the secretary or the director, it's going to give us more opportunity. We want to expand competition.
Answer the question.
That's
not what he asked. That's not
what is the question?
As an aspiring small business owner hoping to open a successful tech startup, I would like you to explain how net neutrality benefits small businesses and why you voted against it.
I don't think that net neutrality is defined by this past administration benefits small businesses at all. We need expanded opportunities for using the internet. We need expanded opportunities for having broadband and cable that gets to us. Net neutrality doesn't do that.
Do you know what net neutrality is?
It takes away the competition. It says government will decide, and you only have to look at the Affordable Care Act to see what happens when government establishes the playing field.
You didn't even answer the question, and that's not what net neutrality
This
is.
next question is,
You don't understand. You don't know what you're talking
I think, oh, Sam, this next question is,
I gave my answer. Let's move to the next question.
You didn't even answer it.
There's no more questions until you give us answers.
Sam from Ann Arbor would like to know what the recently passed budget bill, what you like about it and what you don't like. The House just passed a budget bill. Could you explain what you like about the bill and what you don't like?
One thing it did was kept us in line with our 2011 spending plan to keep us at 2011 spending. Folks, we've got a $20 trillion debt. We've had deficit spending for too long. And in 2011, the Ryan Murray spending plan was passed, thankfully signed by President Obama, which we've allowed to keep in place and fought to keep in place so that here in 2017, we still have basic 2011 spending levels. What we did better in this plan, finally, with an opportunity for a president who would sign it, was to plus up our defense spending to make sure that our boots on the ground, our military families, etc., would have the resources necessary to make sure that the number one responsibility that we have as a government, and that's to defend and protect our citizens, is carried out. And so while we restrain the Pentagon, and that definitely does need to be restrained, yet to give the boots on the ground not only the armaments necessary, the training that's necessary, the support capabilities that are necessary, but also the first significant pay increase in 6 years to our military families. That is probably one of the best factors that we did. Secondly, we put significant dollars toward homeland security, making sure that our borders are protected, making sure that we have resources capable of doing the necessary vetting in a time where terrorists want to come and destroy the freedoms that you and I have. And you just have to walk through an airport as many times as I do. We also made sure that a number of other areas were bumped up. Mental health funding was bumped up in that proposal. GLRI, Great Lakes Restoration Initiative, was kept in place, full funding for GLRI. So those are just a few of the good points. There are some bad points in that bill as well. Every spending plan has that. But nonetheless, we move forward our agenda, held to the course that we'd set for the past, well, since 2010 in keeping the spending levels, and now have an opportunity to do a 12-bill appropriations package, one at a time, as opposed to omnibuses, continuing resolutions, cromnibuses that we've had to do for the past 8 years under an administration that wouldn't allow us to pass a full budget without tax increases and spending increases. And that's what we had to do.
Sarah from Tecumseh.
Health care for all. 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 Health care for all.
Okay, let's go to the next question.
Sarah from Tecumseh would like to know what was your rationale for voting for eliminating the stream protection rule?
The stream protection rule didn't protect streams. That's the reason. It also, in doing what it did, it took away jobs of normal middle-class citizens with regulations that didn't make sense and ultimately didn't secure the streams, but took away jobs and added more bureaucracy.
How does keeping chemicals out of our drinking water not logical?
Okay, so we have a group of questions regarding how you vote. Sheila from Jackson, how do you keep your religious beliefs in check when making decisions for the Americans who may or may not have the same beliefs? Jill from Jackson, you represent a diverse group of constituents. How are you representing those who have different opinions? Earl from Dexter, if your party would jump off a cliff, would you? We need Maggie from Michigan, under what circumstances might you vote against party lines, particularly if your constituents were asking for it? Carolyn from Dexter, when voting on a bill in the House, which is more important to you? The constituents' desires, your own values of the bill, or how the Republican Party leaders want you to vote? And Beth from Cement City says, I'm so very saddened by the amount of anger and division in our country right now. How do you think we can come together as fellow Americans to improve this?
Yeah, I'm saddened by it as well. I'm not saddened with the involvement of people from both sides of the issues, or I wouldn't be here. I work for the people of the 7th District, and I made it clear that
You work for us.
I work for you. And every day I work for you. And it is a diverse district. But one thing I've done, and going back to the very first statement about my religious beliefs, I've said, and you can go back to my announcements that I've made over the years since I've run for office, the bottom line, while I won't wear my religion on my sleeve, I'm not going to hide my faith. I believe my faith informs the way I represent people. I believe my faith informs the integrity I tend to stand on, whether you agree or disagree with me. When we went to the polls, we told the people we would vote to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act. I didn't lie to you. I said that I would stand for protecting our Great Lakes. That goes against the party line, and I stood together with my Republican Democrat colleagues in Michigan, in the Great Lakes states as well, in pushing for making sure funding was there. Debbie Dingell and I have worked together significantly on legislation dealing with veterans, dealing with the opioid abuse issue. We work across party lines. I'm sad to point out that at times you don't get the actual reality of what goes on in Washington from the national media. That's why it's good for you to be here today. We have opportunities in Congress where we work together very well, but that doesn't make the news. There are 535 members of Congress. In the House alone, 435, coming from 435 separate districts. It's not like when I served in the State House, 110 members of the State House, but we all came from Michigan. So we at least had one common bond. We come from multiple states, multiple districts. And so you have to work together. And it's not as media reports that we're always at each other's throats. In fact, we cross party lines regularly. We passed the President signed something very significant relative to education. Education is something that we see as a priority. I trust, not only in the 7th District. But last year we had the opportunity, in a bipartisan fashion, to pass the Every Student Succeeds Act, which did away with the federal mandates of Common Core and of No Child Left Behind. That was in the best interest of our educators. They wanted to see that happen. We passed that. The President signed it. It is law now. In career and technical education, training people for jobs of the real world jobs that are wanting right now here in Jackson, because people haven't been trained for those jobs. Now we're seeing a reverse. And the Skills Act that was passed by Democrat and Republicans in the House and Senate and sent to the President gives that opportunity, where we do away with a multitude, literally a multitude, of federal jobs training programs, turn that back to the states with the dollars to follow, to the states, local communities, and even to job providers here to use those dollars to train people for real-world jobs, STEM, advanced manufacturing, etc. That was done in a bipartisan fashion. I will continue to do those things in a bipartisan fashion, but remember, when you say I don't represent you, I do represent maybe the person sitting next to you. But then in another issue, I may represent you. So bottom line, in representative government, you elect a person at the ballot box. That person tells you what they will or will not do. On the basis of that, that person better do what they will do or not do. I hope I answered that question.
More questions to go through. I was hoping to say save some time for some specific healthcare questions. I see that that is important. We have a lot of questions to get through. I've been asked to remind you of the rules. Please sit and hold your sign down so those behind you can see. And please remember to not interrupt, disrupt, or interfere, and act in a respectful way.
That's good. If you could please respect the people behind you at least.
Okay,
So, you asked me to respect your issues. Please respect as well your fellow citizens. Okay, I guess your answer's there. Go on.
So these questions are about President Trump. Linda from Onstead, American politics have been seriously, gravely damaged by the constant lying and tweeting and unpresidential behavior of President Trump. What is your plan to restore some integrity to the American political system? Jackie from Diamondale, why have you voted 6 or 7 times against resolutions to have Trump release his tax returns? Andrea from Jackson, if Donald Trump runs in 2020, would you vote for him? And Susan in Clark Lake, you voted 3 times not to require Trump to release taxes. Why? So taxes, restoring integrity, and would you vote for him in 2020?
The only thing I can do in restoring integrity and promoting integrity in Congress or in government itself is make sure that I live in integrity as well. And for that reason, I will attempt to do that and continue to tell you honestly where I am coming from, what I will do, and then carry that out. I answered the question. I'm getting to that. I was answering the first question first, right? Hey folks, let's work on this, okay? Help me out. They get a lot of questions here, and I want to make sure I get to those questions. But you asked first what I would do. I can only do what I can do about myself. I can't control Donald Trump. I can't control Debbie Dingle. I can't control him much. No, the job of controlling Mr. Trump is left to the voter. Now, on the issue of the votes, in the House of Representatives, we have procedural motions and procedural votes that are purely done for partisan reasons. These are called motions to recommit. And every motion to recommit is brought out not by the majority party, but it's always brought by the minority party. When I was in the minority party, we used motions to recommit. And those motions to recommit were to put our Democrat colleagues on record in a very, very tenuous situation. And we knew that generally their position would be never to vote for a procedural motion like that, because if you vote for one, then you've got to vote for others. So in the case of these motions to recommit that have come from the Democrat Party to make sure that Tim Walberg and other members of the majority are on record voting against something that appears, and I say that with quotes around it, appears to be an important vote, it ends up being used against them, like right now with the question that was asked, why did you vote against calling for Trump's taxes to be released? There is no requirement, no legal requirement for Mr. Trump to release his taxes. And so my vote was against the motion to recommit, and that's all it was. It was a purely partisan motion, that's it.
I have 2 yes or no questions. The first is still about President Trump. Do you think President Obama wiretapped President Trump? Yes or no?
No.
That was from Colleen.
I hope you heard that answer.
That was Colleen from Jackson. Jackie from Diamondale. Do you support getting rid of gerrymandered districts?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I don't have a vote for it. That's done in the state legislature. No, let me make this point. The only ones that establish districts are the state legislature, state house and senate, and then the Supreme Court looks at it. That's what's been done. And oh, by the way, not one Democrat, progressive, liberal challenge was made to the last redistricting. Not one. Next question.
This is from Levitt in Monroe. There's a bill in the House, H.R. 392, which has 202 co-sponsors. Would you please co-sponsor? It removes per country cap from employment-based green cards.
No. No, I think each individual situation needs to be taken into consideration, which each country as well. I think one thing we ought to make sure is that people that come to this country provide something for this country. That's how it's always been. When my family came from Sweden, they came with jobs that they would give to this country, with skills. And you just have to go to the Chicago skyline to see the Wrigley Building and others, where my ancestors came with stone masonry work and added to that skyline in a very positive way. So that needs to continue. This nation has never been just a nation with total open borders. There have been boatloads. There have been boatloads of people that have been turned back for various reasons, health and otherwise.
These questions are about taxes. I think some of them might be referencing healthcare, but they don't specifically say. I will read the question. Jeffrey from Jackson, I live on a fixed income and am looking forward to tax cuts. When will they happen? Jack from Jackson, why do you support tax cuts for the wealthy that don't benefit a working class community like this one? Carolyn from Chelsea, how do you rationalize the tax cuts for wealthy you included in your bill? William from Ann Arbor, does the new tax plan raise the threshold for filing 1099s, currently at 600?
I'd have to take a buy on that answer, the last question. I'd have to check that out. But our tax reform proposal has been put forward now by the House Republican Conference, as well as the one put forward by the President, is a across-the-board tax cut. It's for all levels. It reduces all levels, brings it down to three tax rates, 10, 25, and 35%. And it also, the best thing for the middle class is making sure that the small businesses have an opportunity to expand to employ more people. Bottom line, that's where it comes. And so the proposal to bring business tax, small business tax to 15% expands the opportunity for us not only to compete for jobs here, but also to bring jobs back from overseas or across borders. And all of that gives opportunity for individuals. Remember, folks, we're the ones that pay all the taxes. We pay hidden taxes. It's passed on through the cost of goods and services. We end up paying it. If we had to pay, just simply go down to the local clerk's office and pay monthly the taxes as opposed to paying it at the counter or paying it at various other places, we would be amazed, in fact, greatly angered at the level of taxation that's put upon us. So, bottom line is, we are going to reduce taxes, and that's one of the reasons we want to get this bill passed, move on to have a lower base of level spending, to have a greater tax increase for all of us.
From Jackson County, I'd like you to talk about career technical education.
Care for all.
Career technical education.
Okay.
She would just like you to talk about it.
I love career technical education. I think it trains people for real-world jobs. And I think what's been exciting to see in recent years, because of the fact that we have job sites that are out that are looking for people to perform things like the skilled trades, the STEM jobs that are there, with significant starting incomes and opportunity for further advancement, training, paid for by your employer as well. The opportunity of training people for those jobs and getting people to understand that while certain people should look for a four-year college or university education, not everybody should. There are sweet spots out there that don't take that. There are sweet spots that could be gained by getting a good education starting at an intermediate school district, a skills training center, or going on to community college and getting a certificate that could be stackable in the future, adding on to that. There are apprentice programs, and that's why the Skills Act, or as we ultimately called it, WIOIA, Workforce Investment Opportunity Act, gave control back to states, local communities, community colleges, intermediate school districts, and job training centers to be able to use dollars that were being, frankly, wasted in Washington, administered by bureaucrats that didn't know what Jackson needed. Now put those dollars back here and let our Jackson Community College, let our intermediate school district, let our Jackson Area Manufacturers Association use those dollars for training people, getting them to the marketplace. Oh, and by the way, without student debt. So my dad is a machinist tool die maker. Always had a job. Even in the toughest of times, always had a job. Worked till he was 73, not because he had to, but he enjoyed it. Raised a family on that job. Did skilled work. And we need those jobs now. Yes, they need to have some technology now that they hadn't had before to see the type of things that you do with computer design, etc. But we can train them for that. And they can have a job that goes forward.
Who's going to pay for it?
Next question.
Jackie from Diamonddale asks, why do you push corporate welfare to oil, gas, and coal and oppose renewable energy?
I think I've supported, and in fact, you can fact check. Well, you haven't fact checked well enough. My statements have been, I support all of the above energy plan. All of the above. Which includes renewables, which includes nuclear, which includes coal, gas, all of the above. We need that to make sure that our business and industry goes. If we don't have an all of the above energy plan, which we can have now, fortunately, we can have an all of the above energy plan that meets the needs of jobs, meets the needs of the economy, including your own personal economy.
Is climate change the result of human interaction?
Okay, we're going to move on to healthcare.
Okay.
Okay. A lot of questions about pre-existing conditions. A lot of people have asked you to ask them specifically. The Congressman will receive all of your cards with all of your stories on them. Specifically, give me the page number of the bill that guarantees people with pre-existing conditions will not be price gouged out of their health insurance. And did you, not your aides, read the entire bill?
I read the entire bill. In fact, I also had the entire bill read to me.
What page?
I sat, we'll get to the page. Hang on. We went into Energy and Commerce Committee, which I said, and for almost 28 hours we debated that bill. In fact, let me pull it down.
Why the rush on the vote? What about the CBO? Yeah.
Where's the bill?
That bill is 129 pages, not 2,700 pages. Legislators, the amendments, original bill that we had in committee was 124 pages. I'll get to the page number. You ask another question. 124 pages. I read that before the committee. In committee, the Democrats required the clerk to read the entire bill to us. So we sat there while 124 pages was read to us. Ultimately, with the amendments that were put on before the final vote last week, it came out to be 129 pages. Now, if I read 124 pages twice, 9 pages, 3 of those that came in the last 2 days, entirely capable of reading those. So I answered that first question. H.R. 1628, American Health Care Act of 2017, engrossed in House, page 91 and 92. No limiting access to coverage for individuals with pre-existing conditions. Nothing in this act shall be construed. Nothing in this act shall be construed as permitting health insurers to limit access to health coverage to individuals with pre-existing conditions. So you've got the page, you've got the fact that I've read it, and we're trying to answer your questions.
Single payer now! Single payer now! Single payer
If the
now!
health care bill is good for Americans, why would Congress exempt itself from pre-existing
Single
conditions?
payer now! Single payer now!
We didn't exempt ourselves from the conditions.
Single payer now! Single payer now! Single payer now!
Let's talk about access.
It's not going to happen.
Multiple people have questions about the increased costs
Single
and lack
payer
of
now!
access.
Single payer now! Single payer now! Single payer now! Single payer now! Single payer now!
And since they want to, the next question was going to be, why are you opposed to single payer? So maybe we should just address that first.
What was the question? We couldn't hear.
Thank you. We cannot hear the questions. The question is, why are you opposed to the single payer system?
It doesn't work. If you would ask your community organizers to let you listen, if you would ask your community organizers to stop ramping it up, I can answer that question. But your community organizers want you to do this and drown us out.
We're constituents.
So bottom line is, the community organizer gets you chanting, I can't answer that question. There are reasons why Canadians who aren't healthy come to the United States for care. There are reasons why there are people from other single-payer systems in the world that spend great time and effort to come to the United States for heart disease care, for cancer care. It's because we have the resources. It isn't a setting where if you're healthy, it works well. But if you have to wait in line for care, it doesn't. Now, this illustrates a point that I believe the original idea for the Affordable Care Act was so that it would melt down, so then you could ask for single payer. But single payer doesn't work. You don't have a choice, and you don't get the opportunity to have the care that you need when you need it. And many people will die waiting for that care. So make sure that you follow your community organizer and keeping the information from being heard.
What about Germany,
Brandon
Italy,
from Grand Ledge and
England,
Steve from
France,
Jackson would like to know. I truly love the passion in this room. Let's add a little respect. Brandon from Grand Ledge would like to your other people so their questions can be asked. Brandon from Grand Ledge and Steve from Jackson, why did you not wait for the CBO report before voting?
We had the CBO report. We had the CBO report, and you'll find out when another CBO report comes out. It'll probably be very close to the same. Remember the CBO. Let me talk a little bit about CBO. Two specific things. When the CBO said that because of the Affordable Care Act, 21 million people would be on insurance more than before, were they right? No, they weren't. Less than half of the people came out buying insurance under the Affordable Care Act, according to CBO. Now the other thing is, if you believe the CBO, then why don't you count the CBO as important when they said there would be a 10% because of this bill, 10% reduction in health care premiums as a result. CBO said that too. So you can't have it both ways, I guess.
Angie from Gregory, what changes would you like to see, if any, in the proposed AHCA? And Darlene from Charlotte, how much do you anticipate that the healthcare bill will be changed in the Senate?
I can't determine the mind of a senator.
Oh my God.
There's no way. So we'll see. We did what we wanted to see. I think it came through in a very good bill. It dealt with pre-existing conditions. It kept essential coverage in. It reduced the cost by 10%. And we'll see what happens as it develops. Now there are other two specific steps. Keep looking at her. She wants you to follow along. She's doing a good job.
Oh my God.
Where's the respect?
There are three steps we've said all along in the effort to repeal and replace, or to reform, if you want to use those words, the Affordable Care Act. First was through reconciliation. That can only be done once. It only deals with revenue or expenditure issues. That's it. The Senate has a little more opportunity because they can put an amendment up if it violates the so-called Byrd Rule. They have a second chance. We didn't have that. If we violated the Byrd Rule with our language, it was done. We lost the reconciliation opportunity that stopped filibuster. The second approach comes from the ability that the Affordable Care Act gave in about 1,500 places in the Affordable Care Act that gave the responsibility to the Secretary of Health and Human Services to amend, reform, replace, repeal portions of that act. And so the Secretary of Health and Human Services can still do a number of those things. And he is doing those. Remember, Barack Obama signed at least 10 repeal or replace or reform bills during his time that we put forward. And I'm glad we did that. So that's what we're doing again. The final step will come in a policy bill, and that policy bill will be run through regular order of the House and Senate. It won't be non-filibusteral, so we hope it'll be as minimal as possible. But nonetheless, it will deal with things such as allowing the purchase of health care across state lines to expand our creativity, our coverage potential. That will be in that piece of legislation. A number of other things that I think will reform, repair, and replace what's gone on the Affordable Care Act in a way that will make it better for all of us, regardless of who we are.
Kathleen from Clark Lake asks, have the penalties been eliminated for those who switch jobs mid-year?
Medicare for all! 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 Medicare for all!
I thought a single payer for all.
Kathleen from Clark Lake.
Either would be good.
Have the penalties been eliminated for those who switch jobs mid-year?
Have the penalties been eliminated for those that switch jobs mid-year? The only penalty that would be there is if you switch jobs, you didn't take COBRA, you didn't find another insurance policy in the job that you went to that would cover you, and you were off any coverage for 63 days under this proposal.
People will die. People will die. People will die.
I wish I could answer that question and complete it.
People will die.
You know, if I was able to answer that question, maybe that person would feel a little bit safer because of knowing the fact that we've covered pre-existing conditions. And so if you switch jobs, even if you have a pre-existing condition and you go on another health care plan, you're covered. If the majority of people are covered under employer-provided health care in this country. So bottom line is, if you want access to that, having switched jobs, We better repeal the Affordable Care Act because access is going away. When you have insurance companies that are pulling out of entire states, when you have insurance companies like Aetna who say they will not cover anyone on insurance on exchange, you don't have access. And that's the main problem with the Affordable Care Act.
Okay, so I've been told we have time for one more question, so I'm going Medicaid, Medicare. Linda from Chelsea, how can you support ACHA when it will dramatically cut Medicaid? I have 4 grandchildren, all work, mom gets insurance through jobs and depends on some form of ACA for health insurance. Colleen from Jackson, the bill will jeopardize $4 billion in Medicaid reimbursements for special education districts. What will you do to protect special needs children? The bill cuts over $800 billion in funding for Medicaid and converts it to block grants for states. Why would these be desirable when President Trump eliminates CDBG, community development block grants? And Medicare covers cost and does not generate revenue. How can private insurance be better? Finally, why do you not support Medicaid expansion when the economic impact for Michigan shows $2.3 billion in increased economic activity?
Well, this is a question I'm glad it was asked because there's been an unnecessary amount of fear and smear that's been put out there on the most vulnerable populations. Medicaid expansion in this legislation continues. To 2020, nothing changes. Then the states... See, this goes on so you can't hear the truth. And if you keep people in fear that they're going to lose their insurance, no wonder they will stand with you. If they understood the truth that Medicaid continues, in fact, Medicaid is bolstered for the real reason for Medicaid, people who have genuine needs that can't be cared for by themselves. That's what we want. Beyond that, those people that are on Medicaid for the legal reasons right now, nothing changes. Nothing changes, folks. That is true. Read the bill. 129 pages. So bottom line is, Medicaid continues, doesn't change, and the ability to get fraud and waste out of Medicaid system and then grow an economy so people have the jobs to buy the insurance that now will be there to purchase as opposed to the Affordable Care Act is in place. So you will be, if you're a Medicaid recipient right now, by the Medicaid law, you will be worse off under the Affordable Care Act in the days ahead than you will be on the American Health Care Act. That is a promise to you, and if you read the 129-page bill, you will see it. So, next question.
We are done. Thank you, Congressman.
Let me say thank you for being here. I wish we could have got to some direct questioning, but this is what is the reason why we do these. Stay tuned. There'll be more town halls like this. I thank the City of Jackson for allowing this opportunity. I thank the news media for being here, and I thank each of you as well. Have a great day.